This is Iran's last chance, so says President Trump, with a war threat so familiar, it's becoming a trope. Trump's also furious with Jeanine Pirro, D.C.'s U.S. attorney. Why? Because she's admitted there's no proof a three-time Olympian vandalized the reflecting pool. Ohio GOP Congressman Max Miller vehemently denies abuse charges leveled by his ex-wife. Ohio GOP Senator Bernie Moreno, after months of silence, says Miller, his ex-son-in-law, is a danger to my daughter and should step down. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. You see the Padre mug here. Now, the rules of the show are that this mug does not appear unless the Padres are in first place. They most definitely are not. But today is trade deadline day, which means I can dream about first place. Relevant transactions made during this hour will be duly noted, if necessary. So let us begin. Two words come to mind today and after a very newsy weekend: contradiction and contortion. Here's the contradiction. President Trump called off a planned military attack against Iran because he said the perimeters, his word, of a deal had emerged and new talks would begin to bring it to fruition. Iran denied new direct talks were even happening, something the White House later sheepishly acknowledged. Here's a contortion. The U.S. Treasury recently used billions, we don't know how many billions, to stabilize the Japanese yen. This to keep Japan's economy healthy enough that it doesn't panic and sell U.S. bonds that service our $39 trillion debt. The U.S. has not propped up the yen since 2011, but knows it's partly to blame for where Japan's economy finds itself, which is suffering from higher energy costs because of the war with Iran. Here's another contortion. Republican Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Tom Tillis of North Carolina agreed today to support Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's confirmation as Attorney General after receiving written assurances from Blanche that the so-called weaponization fund is dead and a sweeping Trump settlement with the IRS covers his past misdeeds, those of his family and associated businesses. Not everything in all directions forever, which the senators feared it might have. Yet, former DOJ lawyers told CBS News Blanche's new assurances, even though they're in writing, could easily be reversed and do not, to their minds, constitute a legal concession at all. Here's another contradiction. After much ballyhoo and bluster, the Justice Department has dismissed an indictment against three-time Olympian David Hearn for felony vandalism at the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool. The DOJ said there was no evidence Hearn vandalized anything. DOJ blamed the Department of Interior for misleading it. Turns out, the DOJ said late Friday in a court filing, damage to the pool was, quote, the result of flawed installation by the contractor and the rush to complete the project prior to events associated with the America 250 celebration. Trump immediately contradicted the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, who sought the indictment. Today, he took it a step further, saying Jeanine Pirro choked and folded like an umbrella. One last contortion. This, a continuation of serialized national contortions when it comes to tolerance for a president profiting from his office. Over the weekend, Truth Social, the social media platform that Trump holds a 41% stake in, began selling subscriptions to gain early access to Trump's market-moving posts. Subscribers will pay up to $100,000 a month to stay ahead of non-subscribers, allowing them to rake in millions in high-frequency trading markets. Trump, of course, controls his posts, and his company will now directly profit from said posts. Amid all these contradictions and contortions, we turn with confidence, as ever, to Nancy Cordes at the White House. Nancy, catch us up on Todd Blanche's fate and Senators Cornyn and Tillis.
Major, good to see you. So Todd Blanche had said over and over again, this anti-weaponization fund is dead. It's not going anywhere. And that was not good enough for Senators Cornyn and Tillis, who knew very well that the fund could be resurrected. They were demanding that he put it in writing. over the weekend, he did just that. He issued an order saying not only that the fund is dead, that it's not going anywhere, but that it is not going to go anywhere in the future. That appeared to be enough for Cornyn and Tillis, who released a statement today saying that they are pleased and they are now looking forward to voting on his nomination. So that basically ensures that he makes it out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then it goes to the full Senate for a vote where he will need near unanimous support from Senate Republicans. President Trump did not make this any easier for his AG nominee, because even as Todd Blanche was assuring senators that this anti-weaponization fund was dead, President Trump kept saying that he wished that it wasn't dead and that he felt that people who were convicted, served time for their roles on January 6th, were treated horribly and deserved compensation. Now that it is officially in writing that this fund isn't going anywhere, President Trump says he's going along with it. He thinks that Blanche did the right thing, but that he still thinks it would have been a great thing for people who were targeted, in his view, by their government. Take a listen.
He's going to do a great job. Everybody knows it. And I understand there's been a sign-off, but I don't know what they agreed. I think Todd Blanche agreed to reconfirm things that he's already said, and what he said was okay.
So he says he doesn't know the specifics, but whatever Blanche signed off on, he's okay with it.
And Iran and talks, and whether they're direct or indirect or even substantive.
On that, President Trump said that the talks are happening even if the Iranians deny it. He says that he doesn't know why they deny, and insists that talks aren't happening. But he says those talks are on. He even insisted at one point today, Major, that the Strait of Hormuz, there's going to be a deal in place by tomorrow to get it reopened. So we'll watch to see whether that is indeed the case. But he also said that Iran really had a close call, because if they hadn't come back to the negotiating table, in his view, again, Iran denies this, that he would have bombed them harder than anyone has bombed anyone since World War II. Take a listen.
This is the last chance. This is not something that, if it doesn't happen, this is the last chance for them to sign a good document.
So President Trump saying that this is Iran's last chance to sign a deal, but he has said words very similar to that before, Major.
Boy, is he ever. Nancy Cordes, North Lawn of the White House. Thanks so much. CBS News national security analyst Aaron McClain joins me now. He is also host of the School of War podcast. Aaron, there's a marquee song from the musical Annie that comes to mind. Sun will come out tomorrow. Tomorrow the Strait of Hormuz will be open and the sun will come out. I'm not trying to be glib, but that is the thing I do with you frequently, because there is a part of this that just lends itself to it, because we keep talking about the same things in the same ways.
By my count, Major, this is now the 5th time that the president has threatened massive escalation against Iran, and then either said that allies from the region are intervening or a deal is imminent and back down. Basically, once a month since March, he has done this. It does not inspire, I think, fear in the hearts of the Iranians every time that they go through this cycle. It doesn't inspire confidence in our partners in the region. And it's possible there could be a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow, but color me skeptical.
Right. And when we say that, as the president has acknowledged, the Saudis call, the Qataris call, United Arab Emirates call to don't do this massive strike. It's not as if tomorrow they're not going to be as adamant not to do that, because what are they worried about? They're worried about their own energy producing plants and infrastructure.
That's right. And look, does the United States military retain the capacity to level some sort of massive attack on Iranian infrastructure?
Of course it does.
It does. And those targets, there are plenty of targets. Could be the electrical system, could be all kinds of stuff. But there are two things you got to worry about then. One, as our partners in the region are worried about, what does the counterstrike look like? What kind of targets get hit in places like Saudi Arabia in response? And two, is the political outcome going to be what the president wants it to be after all this time? Will the Iranian regime weather whatever that attack is for some time and still hold on to the strait by its fingernails? What do you do then?
And the president has said correctly many, many times, the United States is better buffered from oil price shocks than it would have been 20 years ago because of massive increases in natural gas and oil production here. That's true. Some of it's with policy before Trump, but a lot of it reflects Trump policy. But that doesn't mean everyone is so buffered. Japan is not. And the intervention over the weekend to stabilize the yen strikes me as part of the war story.
But we live in a globalized economy, so the prices of commodities interact across the globe. One nation's financial crisis becomes another nation's financial crisis pretty quickly. So I think you're right to draw that connection between Japanese financial issues and the energy issue in the Middle East. And this is another way in which the president is really in a bind. If he escalates, the Iranian counterstrike against energy targets in the Gulf could harm energy markets. If he stays the same, we stay the same in this constant sort of simmer of problems in the market. If he retreats, the Iranians still control the strait, which means they still get to mess with energy traffic at their leisure indefinitely going forward. It is an unenviable set of choices that he has dealt himself.
And when an ally needs currency stabilization because of a war the United States helped launch, that's a real consequence.
It is a real consequence. This story isn't over yet. We don't know what's going to happen yet. The president may yet follow through on his threats. But like I said, it's not a great range of choices right now.
Aaron McLean, great stuff as always. Thank you so much. Today, President Trump blasted, as we mentioned at the top, longtime ally and current D.C. Attorney General Jeanine Pirro, U.S. Attorney, because she moved to drop charges against former Olympian David Hearn, indicted for vandalizing the reflecting pool. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanka is here with all the details. Nicole?
So, look, Jeanine Pirro came to a factual conclusion that the president did not like. Let's take a look at what he said, then we can talk about what actually changed Pirro's mind and what some of the politics here are. Take a listen.
They got carried away because the judge was extremely unfriendly to Jeanine. And frankly, I think she choked because the judge was really vicious. Instead of going after the people that did it, the judge went after her and went after her department. And I guess she choked. I don't know what the hell happened.
Are you reconsidering her role, Pirro's role?
I don't know what. You don't. You're fake news. Don't ever talk again. I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. Really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace.
Sounds like real job security for Jeanine Pirro.
Really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro.
What is this stuff about the vicious judge?
What changed here, Major, is just the evidence. So Pirro's office says...
What judges ask for after there's...
Legally, an indictment only means a grand jury found probable cause. It doesn't relieve prosecutors of continuing that obligation to determine whether admissible evidence can sustain a conviction.
Right.
So what happened here was...
And you have to share it with the defense.
You have to share it with the defense. Pirro's office said only after Hearn was indicted did the Interior Department step forward, show records that showed essentially this rush job on the reflecting pool that a National Park Service engineer warned as early as June 11th that the quote-unquote overspray they were using on the pool's surface could leave the perimeter vulnerable to peeling, and that it was in the same general area that Hearn was accused of damaging. Pirro went to the pool herself on July 17th. She saw all of the damage. She saw it could not be reasonably attributed to Hearn here, and prosecutors concluded that this undermined both causation and also intent. In other words, this isn't Pirro doing Hearn a favor. This is once the government's own records determine the case, she had a professional obligation,
as she states in the letter,
to reassess it.
Because under laws of evidence and judicial proceeding, this is what you have to do.
And Major, we can look at this in two ways. Number one, evidence can still override politics, at least in this case, because the U.S. attorney here, one of Trump's closest and most visible allies, has actually contradicted the president here, acknowledging the weakness in her own case and moving to dismiss it. Whether or not the president fires her, however, will be interesting to watch because it would deepen, not answer concerns about a politicized Justice Department.
And Nicole, we had you here Friday to talk about Minnesota.
Yes.
And cyber attacks on water systems. I understand Michigan is now also part of this story.
And that's the big headline over the weekend. Now, we had spoken about this on Friday, that there were 7 states that were affected and that there were similar systems used in Minnesota as there were in Michigan, in Ohio, in Texas. Well, now we've heard at least confirmation from one of those states. But the facts remain, though the attackers have targeted these very vulnerable internet-facing programmable logic controllers That's the fancy device used to monitor or control equipment inside of water facilities. It remains the case that the operational consequences have been somewhat limited. Losses of water pressure, flooding, but no groundwater that has been tainted as of this point. We talked about this earlier, but the leading thought here is that this could have been an operational oops by whoever was behind this. In this case, experts I speak with say it is almost certainly the Iranians who were trying to do this stealthily and came up short once they changed IP addresses and passwords.
Important. No catastrophic or even near dangerous results so far, but something we're going to keep a very close eye on.
Absolutely.
Nicole Skanga, thank you so very much. Ohio Republican Senator Bernie Moreno says his ex-son-in-law, Congressman Max Miller, is dangerous, needs psychiatric care, and should no longer serve in Congress. Miller's ex-wife, Emily Moreno, claims the congressman burned her chest and stomach by throwing hot water at her, held a gun to her head, and fractured their 2-year-old daughter's collarbone. Senator Moreno put out a social media statement that said in part, quote, "If there are any basic standards of character required to hold elected office, Max Miller fails them. He should not serve in the House of Representatives. I believe Max Miller needs to seek professional help to end the clear pattern of abuse he has left in his wake." For his part, Congressman Miller posted a lengthy social media video on Sunday. In it, he denied all allegations and attached what he said were documents pointing to his innocence.
No criminal charge has ever been filed against me. My former wife is engaging in a pattern of reporting incredible, serious, and destructive allegations with absolutely no evidence. I'm not getting out of this race, and I'm winning in November, and I'll be back in the 120th.
On this highly charged story, Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us from Capitol Hill. Caitlin?
Hey, Major. Well, this is a really high-stakes family feud that actually has implications for who controls the U.S. House of Representatives. Max Miller represents a conservative district in Ohio. Trump has won it handedly, repeatedly, but it is starting to become a closer race. And he's also facing a deadline of this Wednesday to drop out, and Republicans can pick his replacement. So a lot of pressure is building on him, Major, to drop out of his reelection bid and to even resign from Congress. His own father-in-law, who you heard there or saw his statement, the senator from Ohio, saying that his former son-in-law should not be a member of Congress, given these allegations. He is pledging to move forward. He has denied, Max Miller has denied all of these allegations that have been made by his ex-wife in court documents, we should underscore. They both have restraining orders against one another. And so this is a highly fraught, highly, really awful case, especially since there is a 2-year-old child involved. And then the added dynamic is that if Miller doesn't drop out, Republicans are concerned about his ability to hold this seat and therefore their ability to hold on to the House of Representatives. So he is facing that difficult deadline there. And it was notable that we saw Senator Moreno weigh in here over the weekend, because so far he has stayed out of this and not wanting to engage in this publicly. And so that is the added dynamic. The question is whether there is continued pressure to build from other Republicans. And the person who could is President Trump, who had this to say about Max Miller, who used to serve in his administration.
Well, it's a very sad thing. I know Max. He's a good person. I mean, I always thought he was a very good person. And I'm going to let the families figure that out. You know, those families, I know they're working on it. It's a very sad thing, especially when you know somebody so well, to be going through that. But it's accusations, and I'm going to let them figure that out.
So far, no indication as of yet that the president might push Max Miller to reconsider. And Major, should note, this is not the first time allegations of physical abuse have come up against Miller. He formerly dated the White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham in the first administration, and she also made similar allegations of physical abuse that she detailed in her book. Again, those are claims that Miller had denied, but claims that were brought up nonetheless.
Caitlin Huey-Burns from Capitol Hill, thank you so very much. Still to come, The long-running effort on Capitol Hill to pass federal crypto regulations, where the House approved Clarity Act, stands days before the Senate begins its summer recess. Also, the last full day of campaigning for Michigan Senate candidates. Ed O'Keefe speaks to Abdul El-Sayed ahead of tomorrow's much-watched primary. Plus, we grew up, well, at least I did, with the delightful picture of Earth as a glorious, smooth, big blue marble. Turns out Mother Earth, like me, has lots of lumpy, misshapen edges. New images confirm this, and we will take a look. Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Takeout. No new Padre news. If there is any, I'll share it with you, I promise. But to Michigan now, Abdul El-Sayed and Congresswoman Haley Stevens making their final pitches, as you might expect, to Democratic voters before tomorrow's primary for the U.S. Senate seat. Our Ed O'Keefe spoke to Abdul El-Sayed and joins me now from a Haley Stevens event we should underscore because we are talking to both sides as best we can. Ed, take it away.
Major, good to be with you from Michigan. This is the big contest tomorrow. All eyes on what it means here in this battleground state, set to be an early presidential primary state next in 2028. We spoke with Abdul El-Sayed, the former public health official, former 2018 gubernatorial candidate, about this contest against the Congresswoman Haley Stevens. And we spent a good chunk of our conversation talking about, given that this is a primary, what it means to be a Democrat and the future of the Democratic Party. Take a listen. So if you win and get the Democratic Party that you want, who belongs in it and who doesn't?
Anybody who wants to take on fascism, anybody who wants to get money out of politics, anybody who wants to fight for union rights, anybody who wants to make sure that people can live free with clean air and drink clean water, anybody who wants to guarantee health care, come on in, the water is fine. We want to build a broad coalition, but sometimes when the Democratic Party talks about a big tent, we push everybody into the corner and then go talk and pander to the corner. I'm just trying to bring everybody to the tent pole in the middle to talk about what we really need. We need good housing. We need good schools. We need health care. We need to know that our government works for us rather than the corporations who buy off politicians. We need to know that our money is going to be spent on us. And I think that can unite people independent of how they pray, who they love, how they identify, if they pray, where they come from in the state, the color of their skin, coming together to build something that we can only have together.
Do you get, well, is there any group of people in the organization that's sort of a red line for you that says, no, you're not part of this, or that view is not part of the Democratic Party I'm hoping to sustain here in Michigan?
We're trying to define a viewpoint that's built on money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare for all. If you agree with those things, come join us. We're for civil liberties. We're for equal rights. We love and appreciate all people. And I want to build this movement, bringing people together around the things we need and deserve that we can have together if we fight for them.
Is the DSA part of the Democratic Party in Michigan?
I'm not DSA.
I know you're not.
But if folks from the DSA want to be a part of the Democratic Party, I would imagine that anybody would want them there, right? Because you want voters. Like this idea that somehow we are going to win elections by pushing people out seems to me to be inconsistent with the way that democracy works. You want a coalition of all people. You know who else are going to be part of my coalition? 3-time Trump voters who want health care, who want to keep our money here at home.
And they're out there, yeah.
They're out there. I meet them at almost every event I go to. So we're building a big, broad coalition, truly a big tent of people that combines folks from DSA on one side, even if I'm not a socialist, and combines 3-time Trump voters, even if I've never voted for Donald Trump.
El-Sayed points out that he's been outspent. It's about 9-to-1 money for Stevens versus money for him. But he seems pretty confident going into tomorrow, Major, that that money may not have mattered.
I noted, as I'm sure you did, Ed, nothing in what El-Sayed just said to you in that interview, and it may have come up in subsequent questions, about Israel or AIPAC, which is the sympathetic public affairs committee that is pouring a lot of money into this race on behalf of Haley Stevens. How did that strike you?
It came up later, but not certainly something that he was emphasizing when we were talking about sort of that electability argument or what it would take to sort of hold this party together going into November and beyond. And it's Stevens who has benefited from that money from AIPAC. They run this ad almost on a loop here that replays something former President Obama once said about her and the work that she had done during the Obama administration to help bail out the auto industry, which, of course, here in Michigan is a top employer. And that ad is sort of designed to suggest that he's endorsed her. He hasn't. But by putting that kind of money behind that kind of a message, it may leave in the minds of voters the idea that she is, in fact, backed by him. And that's what frustrates El Sayed in part. Not necessarily that it's AIPAC spending the money, although that is a big part of the problem, but just that those perceptions are being baked in by spending so much against him. Stevens is here in Grand Rapids tonight with some other local officials and former Senator Debbie Stabenow who have endorsed her. She is set to speak with us, hopefully a little later. And if and when that happens, we'll, of course, bring highlights to you digitally and here tomorrow as primary day approaches, Major.
Ed O'Keefe, as always, thank you so very much. Coming up, the battle over who will lead the intel community, well, it's over. What Jay Clayton had to say in his first day as National Intelligence Director. That's next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to Takeout. Welcome to the Conversation Corner. Here's a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. Jay Clayton, sworn in today as new Director of National Intelligence. He was confirmed last week after a month-long delay when Trump ally Bill Pulte served as acting Director of National Intelligence. In his confirmation hearings, you might remember, Clayton refused to say Joe Biden won the 2020 election, only that he was certified. In a statement today, Clayton says he will make sure the intel community, quote, is never weaponized for political motives, unquote. Michigan has reported today 2 deaths from an intestinal illness caused by a parasite. These are the first 2 deaths in the U.S. linked to the cyclospora outbreak. Officials say the 2 who died had significant underlying health issues. Cases have climbed to record numbers this year, in part from contaminated lettuce that was linked to Taco Bell and a supplier in Mexico. The Senate heads to recess Friday, or maybe it'll be Saturday. The calendar is very convoluted right now. But anyway, it's going to be this weekend. That means time is running out to consider a big crypto regulation bill. It's called the Clarity Act, and it passed the House with a bipartisan vote last year. And it would give federal agencies new power to monitor digital assets like cryptocurrency. Brian Von Grack is the vice chair at Coinbase, let us say a very interested party in this, and joins me now. I know you're going to be optimistic. That is your obligation. You are duty-bound to tell me you are hopeful this is going to happen by Saturday. But you know as well as I do, there are lots of legislative planes to land, and prospects are, I will say, dim.
Well, you're right. First of all, it's great to be on, Major. I remain optimistic because legislation is never linear.
Right.
Last-minute negotiations and compromises are the norm, not the exception when it comes to D.C. And what matters here is that the substance is largely done. You have a multi-100-page bill with customer protections and law enforcement tools. And what matters here is that bill is a product of extensive negotiations with Republicans and Democrats. And typically, when the substance is good and it's done on a bipartisan basis, you usually, in the end up in the right place. And I think the Senate will not squander this rare opportunity to get it done.
So explain to my audience what would happen. So you have cryptocurrencies. They're differently categorized. And you have 2 regulatory agencies, Securities and Exchange Commission, Community Futures Trading Commission. What would this bill do?
Right. So importantly, for the first time, this bill is going to help clarify which activities belong in one space or the other. But I want to underscore that's not a unique challenge in our ecosystem. The securities and the commodities space, we have 2 different regulators, but they often have to collaborate and figure out which types of asset classes belong in one group or the other. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. What has happened is crypto's been around for 15 years, and no one took the time to articulate where this new technology fits within those categories. And for the first time, investors and innovators will finally know who they have to interact with when they're innovating.
And what they have to disclose, and what they have to make clear to regulators to be in compliance.
Absolutely. And this is what I think is one of the biggest misnomers in this debate. The industry is seeking to be regulated. It's not fighting against it. In fact,
Slightly unusual.
It's slightly unusual. It is unprecedented. In fact, Coinbase sued the SEC to try to get it to promulgate rules and regulations. And so I think it's important to take a step back and recognize, compared to the status quo, this bill is a rare no-brainer. And that's because this bill, as you noted, will finally provide comprehensive oversight in this space. And the status quo provides none of those things. So if you vote against this bill, you are voting against hundreds of pages of protections and tools that this bill would otherwise provide.
Public Citizen put out a report last month that said the crypto industry now accounts for 37% of all tracked corporate political spending in this midterm cycle. $189 million in this midterm cycle, more than the $170 million you spent in the previous cycle. Skeptics would say, you're not spending that money because you're altruistic or you love politicians. You want something.
Well, look, we've made our case in court. We've made our case in Congress. We've made our case in public, no different than any other company. That is part of our process. But we are proud that we've given voice to the over 1 in 4 Americans who hold crypto and who believe that we should have a regulated structure. And we're proud to support members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, who similarly appreciate the possibilities of this technology and similarly believe this should fall under comprehensive federal oversight. And that is why crypto remains one of the most bipartisan issues in Congress, which you yourself noted at the top of the segment.
Coinbase gave $1 million to Trump's presidential inauguration, $300 million to the ballroom renovation. Any regrets?
There's never going to be a regret to participate in the political process. Again, no different than any other company.
Leverage or influence?
Well, in what regard? At the end of the day, it is not unique to contribute to efforts to help build national monuments or other nonprofit organizations. It's not unique to contribute to political candidates. We were not alone. This is not a crypto-specific endeavor. If you look at those who participated, it was kind of a who's who of major and significant industries and companies. What matters is not kind of those contributions, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about this bill, what matters is customers who are going to be protected and innovators who have the certainty to operate in this space.
If this doesn't happen before the August recess, do you have to lay this over to the lame duck?
No.
There's only going to be like 2 weeks in September, and they're going to be doing so many other things. You know that.
There's no doubt that there are time pressures and there's a sense of urgency, but just because we don't finish the process now doesn't mean we won't have time in September.
Ryan Van Grack, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much
for
coming.
Thank
I appreciate it. Dinner starring Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know if starring is the right word, but anyway, Tucker Carlson and other former Trump allies. You see the picture there? It looks like a hunting lodge or something. Anyway, our political panel will dissect what that hunting lodge is all about. Is it a movement or just a dinner party? We'll try to find out. That's next on The Takeout. Welcome back. Political panel time. You know how exciting that is. Democratic strategist Amisha Cross and Republican strategist Jesse Arm. Jesse, all right, we don't spend a lot of time here analyzing photographs from like a magazine like Guns and Ammo or something like that, or Outdoor World or whatever. But there's this picture posted this weekend. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, her new husband, Brian, that is to say MTG's, and Tom Massey. Talk about the movement. This is like the beginning of something big. Is this Ripon Society stuff from Wisconsin, the formation of something new and important in the Republican world?
I don't know. Probably about as relevant as, a collection of never-Trumpers coming together in the 2016 aftermath of Trump getting elected. No, I see a lot of people who, Tucker Carlson said it quite well in an interview with the New York Times' Lulu Garcia-Navarro not too long ago. He got asked about economic policy, okay? And he said, the truth is the GOP establishment is wrong. Traditional conservatives are wrong. We got to do more like what the far left is offering. He gets asked about foreign policy. He says, the truth is Republicans and the GOP establishment are wrong. Conservatives have gotten wrong. We got to do more about like what the far left is offering. And then he gets asked about social and cultural issues, and he says, honestly, all of that is just a distraction from what a raw deal Americans are getting on foreign and economic policy. And then it's like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, you're just a subversive. You're just a nihilist. You're just someone who's advocating for the exact same agenda as the hard left. I'm still waiting to see Graham Plattner, now that he's available in Maine, maybe go on to his neighbor's show, Tucker Carlson, at some point.
Amisha, how do you diagram all this?
Well, I think that Tucker is onto something here. As somebody who's personally not a Tucker fan, I think that Tucker is actually very smart and strategic. He recognizes what the polling numbers look like for Trump. He recognizes what the polling numbers look like for the Republican Party. And he also recognizes that this war is extremely unpopular in red states, blue states, purple states, and anywhere in between, and would like for Trump to get back to the things that got him elected in the first place. I think that putting together this semblance of other people who are not the same as never Trumpers, those individuals, I think, jumped the cart before the horse a while ago and never got any real traction. This is a very different situation because they've waited for a specific moment. These are people who are hardline supporters of Donald Trump, not only through his first administration, but also through the majority of the second one, until it started taking a very different toll and the American public started pushing back. They have a very interesting lane to lean into, and I think that this is going to be something that they're going to do throughout the rest of his term.
Also want to update the audience on something that was just announced this afternoon by the House Ethics Committee. It is going to recommend that the House censure Representative Chuck Edwards. Why? Because the committee has decided, based on its investigation, that Edwards violated House rules related to sexual harassment and hostile workplaces. Jesse.
Seems bad.
On its face.
Yeah, it seems bad. Obviously, I mean, there's more and more of this kind of behavior coming out about elected officials. We'll have to see what the details of the investigation bear out. But obviously, this is more negative press that GOP members of Congress do not need heading into an election cycle that is already proving to be quite turbulent for them.
Amisha?
Men will be their own undoing. Unfortunately, for many, there were no lessons taken from the Me Too movement, and we keep seeing more and more amplified behavior. I would argue that we have a president in the White House who has time and time again, even when faced with his own behavioral issues when it comes to women's sexual abuse and sexual assault, has been somebody who continued to rise. So many people within his own party feel as though they will as well. Even though in this case we have not necessarily heard specific, proven allegations of sexual assault or sexual abuse, what we do see is a very legitimate pattern of what is called love bombing by somebody who was in a position of power and who utilized that for a lot of people who were just getting started in their careers. It's objectionable behavior on its face. It also says something, I think, that should send shockwaves across multiple sides of the political aisle and spectrum. Young women should be allowed to enter into government fields, should be allowed to enter into social justice or other justice-related activities without necessarily having to fall under the weight of men who cannot control themselves or their urges.
What's at stake in Michigan tomorrow, Jesse, from your perspective?
Well, a lot. This is my home state, so I'm obviously paying very close attention to it. Look, this is a clear sign about where the future of the Democratic Party is headed, right? You've got a sort of establishment, moderate, mainstream Democratic candidate in Haley Stevens. She's got all the advantages of the world in terms of financial support.
And endorsements from popular statewide Democratic officials.
Including the incumbent governor, who is quite popular in the state. And yet, it seems more likely than not, if you believe most of the polling that's out there, she is poised to lose to a hard left insurgent candidate who has in my opinion, campaigned with some pretty egregious characters like Hassan Piker, who has suggested that America deserved 9/11, that Jews are inbred. And this candidate, Abdul El-Sayed, is someone who struggled to condemn the Temple Israel near massacre when someone from Dearborn Heights via Lebanon nearly rammed an explosive-laden truck into a Jewish preschool with 140 kids inside at a synagogue. And this is someone in El-Sayed's case who said that it was a risk to condemn that attack in any way, shape, or form. So there's clearly a temptation for more subversive, transgressive politics on the Democratic side of the aisle. And I think that El-Sayed is flirting with it, and he's likely to be rewarded for that.
Amisha, what's at stake in Michigan from your perspective?
There's a temptation for change. There is a temptation for thinking beyond obvious realities and making sure that you're addressing the calls of today, not reminding us of a yesteryear that we will never return to. What El-Sayed has done, and he has done strongly, is showcase a path forward in healthcare, a path forward in education affordability, a path forward in housing affordability. And he is speaking to a generation of people who want to see affordability not only as a platform issue, but want to move into what that actually looks like in real time and not have status quo politics. And unfortunately for his opponent, she is literally running a campaign that might have worked in 2016, possibly 2014, but damn sure does not work in 2026.
Amisha Cross, Jesse Arm, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Coming up, NASA's new look at planet Earth reveals some flaws. And that's okay. Realism rules. At least it does here. You're watching The Takeout. Welcome back to Takeout. Welcome back to the Conversation Corner. From Apollo 11 to Artemis 2, NASA space missions have provided numerous images of a beautiful, seemingly smooth, perfectly round Earth. But now, new renderings from NASA reveal something quite different. Viral measurements of the planet's gravitational field show our home looks more like a lumpy potato than a blue marble. Senior science editor at Wired, Brian Kahn, joins me now. Brian, I'm so glad you're here. Is what we just saw more realistic and therefore truer to what we should understand about the planet? And if so, why is that important?
I would say it's realistic in the sense that it is measuring something important. It's not exactly how the planet looks. I'd say this looks like a lumpy potato that we just saw. Our planet's probably maybe, let's say, a little bit more like an orange. So there are some lumps and bumps, but it is on the whole still a pretty smooth space. But what this does show is something really important. It shows the state of gravitational pull across the planet. So, something that has a lot of mass, like a mountain, will have more gravitational pull than a valley. And so that's what this is showing essentially, is like the different levels of gravity in different places. And it's showing what it would look like if those were the only forces, along with rotation, basically stretching the world's oceans out. So luckily, we're not living on this lumpy Earth. We're living on a nice round planet. But in an exaggerated form, this is what the forces of gravity look like.
And how were these renderings made, Brian?
So they're made using these really, really powerful satellites. NASA has a couple really cool satellites that are able to measure these minute differences in gravity. So you and I, we're not going to feel it. If we're standing on the top of Mount Everest, we might feel lightheaded because the air is thin, but the gravity doesn't feel that difference to us there versus down at sea level. But these NASA satellites are able to take these measurements, and they've been doing so for about a decade and a half. They've gathered over 1 billion pieces of data to basically make these very, very specific measures of what it looks like on the ground. And so that's how you end up with this really stunning visualization.
And as we all know, water covers a great portion of the Earth's surface, and there is a water ice melt component to this as well. Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's right. So, what they're able to do, so you have this cool visual, and that's great for us to be able to look at. But what scientists are looking at is not just what's, sort of this lumpy, bumpy Earth. They're looking at what's changing over time. And what they've been able to see is that the Antarctic and Greenland, areas where climate change is heating things up and causing billions of tons of ice to disappear, as it melts, it changes the gravity in those locations. And so this map is actually, what's the data behind this map is what's able to help scientists understand what is going on in these remote and really fragile places where it's really hard to get instruments and to have observations full-time on the ground. And so, yeah, what you're getting here is not just cool visual, it's cool visual and really important science behind it.
Brian, we love new words or words that are new to us on this show, and geoid is a new word to me. And this is described in your piece as a new geoid model. What does that mean?
So the geoid is the shape that we have here. It's just a fancy word to describe the lumpy shape that we see. When we look at the Earth from space, it's a nice, lovely sphere. When we look at the gravity field, it's a little bit different. And so geoid is basically describing the shape of the Earth, and actually the shape of the oceans. If we didn't have these other forces spreading out the oceans across the Earth, this is what it would look like if they were all spread according to the forces of gravity around the world.
So if I'm a scientist who's interested in this imagery and I look at this, what are the kind of conclusions I might draw?
So there's the ice stuff that we talked about. And in addition, you can also look at other things like groundwater. So during the drought in California in the 2010s, there was so much groundwater pulled out of the ground that gravity actually changed there. We've also seen similar things happen in Australia and elsewhere. So we're able to both look at the poles in these really far off places and understand what's going on there. But we're also able to look at places that are maybe a little bit closer to home, but can be, benefit from having a bird's eye or a satellite's eye view of. And so there's a lot of ways that scientists are able to both look at this in terms of what is happening with the climate, what's happening with our natural resources, and also just understand the sort of shape of the Earth and what's going on, in the deposits whether it's iron, titanium, whatever, underneath the surface.
Wired's Brian Kahn. Perfect stuff. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Quick reminder, folks, The Takeout is available as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else. You can find each show there along with our long-form interviews, of which we do many, such as our recent 30-minute chat with Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed. Happy Monday, everyone. This is The Takeout. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. Don't forget that. The Daily Report coming up next.